Welcome to Raven Talk, the official podcast of the Raven Tribe. The Raven Tribe is a home for warriors on the path, and is dedicated to training warriors for the battlefield of life. Visit us on the web at theraventribe.com, where you can learn more information on membership, warrior training, as well as links to our official YouTube channel, Facebook group, apparel store, and our official bookstore, Marshall Books.
Welcome back, Tribe. Today we're here with special guest Aurelio DeLaRosa. We're going to be discussing the martial art of Luta Livre. Aurelio, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. Glad to have you on, man. You've been a long-time friend and supporter of the tribe, and happy to have you on. Aurelio, for the audience at home, can you do me a favor and give us a little bit of information about who you are as a practitioner, what your background is, and what you're actively doing today?
Well, professionally, I'm a police officer. I've been doing that for about 26 years. But I've always been into combat sports. I actually started, believe it or not, back in the day in Kung Fu and Taekwondo under Sensei Leonard Smith. And I'm talking, I was in my teens, pre-teens then. I ended up joining the Army and was introduced to a man by the name of Richie Sestoso, a Filipino. He was my platoon sergeant. And for our PT, we did Filipino martial arts, Kali and Eskrima. And so it was quite an eye-opening experience. And it felt in line with what I did in my job description there, because we were the forward-most element of our battalion. I served in Delta Company 3, the 3rd of the 504 Parachute Infantry Regiment. And what happened, I ended up coming back to Illinois, became a police officer, found that I really missed it. I started in Shotokan Karate, got ranked. I found that I needed more. About that time, I was the evolution of the UFC. And the UFC really opened my eyes because I started seeing all these other guys with all these different styles, and I was, just intrigued by what it was, and it was this grappling art, and it was just an awesome experience to watch the UFC. So I got invited to by a couple of guys to do this little fight club, and so we that was the start of my Luta experience, unbeknown to me. I found, though, that for many years I wore a gi, whether it was in Taekwondo or whether it was in karate, and I started wearing one because we had one of our instructors, Brad Inman, was a practitioner in Yankee in Jiu-Jitsu, and so we started going that route. It turns out it was Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So I spent time doing that. It was a great experience. It went hand in hand with my police work because it dealt with all the wrist locks, throws, and I liked it. And then it had some elements of the grappling art, and just the real, I guess, if you want to say, the basic concepts and basic techniques. I found that I wanted more and started researching, and I came across an art, and I came across a guy by the name of Andy Anaconda. And so I reached out to Andy and said, hey, where can I find Brazilian Luta Livre in the United States? And he's like, hey, as far as I don't have anyone just yet, but there is one other guy that I train with, and I guess for lack of better words, he's going to be my affiliate, and that's a guy by the name of Ty Pilgrim. He's my coach for Muay Thai, and he's also my coach for Luta Livre as well. He's a black belt under the RFT Brazil, Renato there. And so there was a time and place where Coach Ty, whenever the Brazilians came to the United States, they'd come through Thunder MMA, which was RFT USA. And so I got to travel back and forth to Oklahoma and put in the work. And so I'm not ranked as per se as a black belt there. I'm ranked as a brown belt, been a brown belt for a long time. I'm hoping, here soon or when I go back down again to Muskogee that I test, or when he comes up here, Ty Coach Ty is going to be here next month, and so hopefully I get an opportunity to test. But I found that I wrestled in high school and I wrestled in the Army as well, and I found that Brazilian Luta Livre had a lot of concepts that were wrestling based, but it was more of a complete art because I saw elements of striking in it, and in my opinion, for me, it was the martial arts that fit best in my style and with what I liked. Because we get a takedown, we'd look for the submission right away. And again, with Coach Ty and with Andy, if all you're doing is stalling, then that's not Brazilian Luta Libre. It's you're just stalling, and these guys, as soon as you engage, you should be looking for a submission, whether it's an arm submission, whether a neck submission, or whether you're looking for a leg submission. So in Brazilian Luta Libre, it's about all submissions. We train everything from arm bars, triangles, chokes, leg locks, toe holds, heel hooks, and we don't discriminate on the submission. And so I absolutely like that about the art. And so I nowadays I primarily teach Brazilian Luta Libre or any kind of Luta Libre because I'm ranked in his style. But I also dabble in Sambo. I like Sambo, and I really do. I've dabbled in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I found that for what I like to do and for my style and the things that I've grown up doing, the Brazilian Luta Libre and the Sambo are probably the best suited arts for me. Here recently I went back to teaching, I guess for lack of a better word, the street fighting class, which is an FMA based class, and I'm using concepts of the Okinawan Jiu-Jitsu that I studied in that particular class as well. So I try to keep it well-rounded as far as what my curriculum is at my school, so that the students that are there have a variety of different disciplines that they can be exposed to, and that way, it's got to work on the street. I'm not one that absolutely the technique is sport-based. I don't believe, this is my personal opinion. I don't believe in a sport-based martial arts. The first word of martial arts is martial, and it has to work in self-defense. And the Luta Libre that I teach is very much will work out on the street, and that in conjunction with the FMA arts or techniques that we teach, it just goes hand in hand. It works for us. So.
Now, Aurelio, let me ask you, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in the 90s exploded on the scene, and Luta Livre, from my understanding, has a pretty long history with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. They kind of go back, and there's like a competitive nature there. But Luta Livre was not seen so much here in the United States. It didn't come over the way that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu did. So I'm curious. You mentioned that you liked it from a personal, stylistic level. Was that your main reason for seeking out Luta Livre rather than going with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is like a lot more available and a lot more practitioners?
Again, growing up in the wrestling side of it, without a jacket, for me, the Luta Livre was a lot easier transition. I think that, and again, this is just my opinion. I truly believe that had it not been for wrestling, I probably would have fallen in on the BJJ side of things. And had I not had the exposure to the Okinawan Jiu-Jitsu, I guess, I liked it. But I also I found many times that even with the jacket on, I was still using wrestling moves, and then catching a submission off of I wouldn't use the pants. I wouldn't particularly. I use the jacket, but at times I found that I just the whole game of grabbing on and holding on and using the pants and everything to sweep. Being working in the field of law enforcement, I found that when I had to control people out on the street, many times they were sweaty or they had blood on them, or you got muck on you, and there is no room for at times because you lose garments, and so for me, I wanted to keep, or I just didn't seek it out, the BJJ, and then again, early on when I started training, BJJ wasn't readily available, too. I'm 49 years old, going to be 50 year next year, May, and so when you think about, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it just wasn't around. Now, as far as the competitive nature between Brazilian Luta Livre and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when you think back about UFC 1 and UFC 2, it blew up, man. What the Gracie family did for BJJ was just outstanding, and they were able to open everybody's eyes, and that was a good thing. But by the same token, it didn't. They found in UFC 3 when Royce got smashed, he got smashed by Kimo, or what's his name? Kimo smashed him. Even though he won, he got smashed, and they realized then that something had to change, because he was dealing with somebody that did not have a gi on. And who was, equally, I guess, as talented, and but he got smashed, and so training had to change. There's always been a competitive or a competition between Brazilian Luta Livre and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and so there's a long history of that. But nowadays, both arts take from each other. From what historically. You weren't allowed to say when you were training jiu-jitsu and you took or BJJ, when you take your jacket off, you weren't allowed to say I'm going to be rolling in Luta Libre. It would be I'm going to be doing submissions, and frankly the guys that back in the day that were rolling in jacketed with a kimono on really looked down on the people that did Brazilian Luta Libre, because there was skin to skin contact, and it was looked down upon. But growing up as a kid and wrestling here, there's skin to skin contact. Yeah, you got your singlet on, but there's a lot of skin to skin contact. So, it was an easier again for me a transition to me. And then we live in the Midwest. Football is big, wrestling's big, and so for me and the students that I have, it was just an easy sell, and it was easy to get people interested in it.
Now, Aurelio, tell me a little bit about the history of Luta Livre. It's my understanding that these two arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Luta Livre, kind of have a distinct flavor, and I may be wrong on this, but please enlighten me. It was my understanding that Luta Livre was more of the art that was available to kind of the working class people back in Brazil, and BJJ was something kind of more for the upper class. Can you tell me something about that background and how that transpired?
And every time I explain this to people, I make a reference to Japan, and in Japan, the art of the samurai, was not really available to the peasants, and the peasants, the art of the peasants was Wing Chun, using all their tools, and in Brazil, the tools were the body, and again, the lower class people living in the favelas, not very well, that weren't well off to do, weren't wearing the kimonos. They were somewhat expensive, and so the people that practiced in the kimono were people that had status and were better off, and that's really the distinction, and so I guess And I hate that. I'm not trying to offend anybody by this, but you could make a reference to blue collar versus white collar. But when you look at it nowadays, both arts take away from each other. There is no real nowadays true form of art. You do see a lot of sport jujitsu now, and even some of the senior Gracie family members have said Luta or Brazilian jiu-jitsu nowadays isn't what it was then. But I'm sorry. Brazilian jiu-jitsu nowadays isn't what it used to be. It's changed so much, and it's become a sport and not really a martial art. But those are pretty much that's pretty much the difference,
Now, where did Luta Livre come from in Brazil? I mean, who was the founder, and where did the material come from? Was he a wrestler? Was he a jiu-jitsu guy?
So there's been a couple of guys that have made a big influence in Brazilian Luta Livre, but Tattoo was it was the one guy that is the biggest influence. I guess if you want to say, and I can't say that he's the founder, but that recorded though.
Gotcha. Now, Aurelio, I was able to watch one of your workshops on Luta Livre, and I've done some, minor training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did about a year with somebody, and one of the things that kind of took me back when I saw your class, and just from my own personal experience, doing basic training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and seeing you teach, people off the street a workshop in Luta Livre, one of the things that it really impressed me was I saw you take, the person from the engagement on the feet. You went to the ground very aggressively, sought out that submission, and it had a very different vibe and very different feel from like BJJ 101 that I've been exposed to. So can you tell me a little bit about the strategy in Luta Livre, why that energy is different there?
Right. Okay. So again, and I'm going to use this guy by the name of Marco Ruas. And when you look at the UFC, and Marco was notorious for going out there in a takedown and looking for the submission. And that's exactly what Luta Livre is from and Andy Anaconda, Andy, he says 45 seconds to a minute, you got to find that submission. You got to find that submission. And so it is very aggressive in nature. We're looking for the for the choke. And so what I do is I may chain a takedown, I may chain a transition, and then I give my students the option of whether it's an arm submission or a neck submission, or we chain it from one to the next. And I tell I absolutely believe in chaining, because the thing is, with all the cross training that's happening nowadays, a guy may stuff your first attempt, and that's why you should have a second attempt. And and again, when you look at FMA, you have route 1, 2, and 3. It's the same thing. And I just kind of apply those fundamentals to the game here. So whether we're hitting a double leg takedown, whether we're hitting an arm drag, it's arm drag into a neck catch, or and some people at times say, hey man, that's real. It looks a lot like catch wrestling. There's a lot over the years. There's been so much blended over on both sides there as well. So it has to be that way. And again, I say that it's martial because it needs to work in the ring, and it absolutely has to work out on the street should you have to defend yourself. So whether you're doing a standing submission or whether you're doing a ground submission, we absolutely got to finish him, because the less time on the ground, is better. We're not going to be staying on the ground having to fight somebody out on the street, because we absolutely know what happens then. Their partner's going to come over there and he's going to, face stomp you or something, And so, again, I teach from that side of it and not from the sports side of it.
Now, Aurelio, how are Luta Livre practitioners doing in competition? I mean, because now, compared to back in the 90s, when things first started. This is a very sophisticated sporting circuit now. I mean, you have amateur and professional levels. I mean, everybody is training mixed martial arts. How is the Luta Livre guys doing in that?
I think they're doing real, well. I mean, I guess I know that the biggest name that ever hit the UFC is Marco Rua. So and Marco is one of the godfathers of Luta Livre. But a well-known name is like Jose Aldo. He trained in Luta Livre. Renato Sobral, Franca Nogueira. Those are all guys that again are at the front. Every now and then, the kid's name escapes me. There's been a couple of kids that made the transition over to the Ultimate Fighter, and they're there, and they're representing the Luta Libre side of it, But again, there's so much crossing over that at times, it just depends on whether the practitioner decides, hey, I'm going to represent this side of it, and then they'll say, I'm a BJJ fighter or I'm a Luta Livre fighter. It just kind of depends. Marcelo Brigadero is another name that's a big. He's over in the UK. Marcelo is known for his submissions. The submissions again. The submissions at times look the same to the BJJ submission, but they may have different names. There's like for us the Americana, what the BJJ practitioners call. We tend to call that the Francesa, and the Kimura we call that the Kimura we call the Americano, and so we change the names a little bit, Yeah,
gotcha.
It works.
Now, let me ask you, Aurelio, are people coming to Luta Livre in large numbers? Are people making the transition over to the Luta Livre way of training? Aurelio, so let me ask you, the practitioners out there now training in MMA, are they gravitating toward Luta Livre? Are they looking to join, the associations and learn the curriculum? Because the field is so big now, and a lot of people are, obviously going the route of BJJ. Other people are kind of doing their own, kind of homebrew mixed martial arts. Is Luta Livre growing outside of Brazil? Are we seeing more schools nowadays? I mean, I know your instructor's from Europe. Is it bigger in Europe or bigger here in the States?
Well, it's real big over in Europe. It's real big in Europe. I had a couple of buddies come in from Sweden. They were BJJ practitioners in Sweden. One's a purple belt, one's a blue belt, and we got to rolling. And over the week that they were here, they were absolutely thankful for the knowledge that they were taking back. And they said, hey, we've never seen the techniques or the approaches the way that you broke them down. And we've never seen your submissions, because I'm hitting Darce chokes from the bottom, and they're like, how did you do that from the bottom? And so I'm talking them through, we're drilling them, and it was a new experience for them. And again, it's just on the approach. I think that I'm hopeful that it picks up in the United States a little more. I know there's a couple of schools out here, but I run the Luta Livre USA along with Coach Ty, and then we got Coach Derek Darling out of Kansas City, and he runs the open mat there. That's the name of the school, or the welcome mat. I'm sorry. And so those are the three schools that I know that are absolutely teaching. I'm actually going to branch out. I got another affiliate that I got a possible affiliate school that I'm going to be doing, hopefully here within the next couple of months out of Sugar Grove, Illinois, and I'm talking to another school up in the Wisconsin area, and hopefully I'll get those guys on board and we'll fly under the flag of Andy Anaconda. But I'm willing to work with anyone and everyone. I don't discriminate. Knowledge is power, and I think that whether it be a good instructor or a bad instructor, I think you have something positive to take away from it. And that's my approach to the game of martial arts, because you may learn that this guy is a complete fool, and you'll leave there and say, okay, I'm not going to use any of that. But it was an enlightening moment for you, so you learned something, And so then at times you'll go to other instructors, and on the other side of it, you'll see great instructors, and it's like, oh shit, here's a drill that I can take, or here's a setup that I can take back and use, And so I like working with the different instructors that are out there. So I give a lot of credit to the people that I'm surrounding myself with, as far as my knowledge-based guys. Coach Vlad, he's a Sambo Fusion guy, and I absolutely love working with him. And he'll be here this weekend, so I'm looking forward to maybe stopping in and working with him a bit. And so it just it works,
Now, Aurelio, let me ask you, the Muay Thai is an aspect of Luta Livre. They do a lot of training in the stand-up striking. Are Luta Livre practitioners, are they competing in stand-up only events as well?
No.
Or do they stick only to the grappling?
No, Luta Livre, my school, my students, we compete in MMA venues because that's what it is, It's NHB, and then we also compete in the grappling tournaments, and so we've been able to hold our own very well in both venues. But the striking aspect of it only sets up our takedowns, so that's why I really do push the striking sports or the striking disciplines, because it just enhances our ability to get somebody to that submission,
Gotcha. And Aurelio, what do you see as the future for Luta Livre in the United States? Do you want to see it grow? Where do you see it in 5 years or 10 years? I mean, do you see a big growth?
Well, I'm hoping that it continues to grow. I try to do my part, and reach out to other schools that may not have a discipline or a curriculum, and I have a good grappling base. I've never been ranked, and what I would tend to do is I tend to come in, do a little workshop for you, and then find out where you're at, work to develop your curriculum, work to give you, work to enhance your curriculum by adding to you, and then test you, so that we can say, hey, here's another affiliate. Guys.
Now, let me ask you to put your police officer hat on now.
Okay.
I've had a couple of students come my way and heard a lot of stories from other people, other instructors. A lot of police officers, just in my personal experience, have come, into my classes because they've gotten out to do, whether it be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu proper or some type of MMA, and they thought, like, hey, this would be great. I'm a cop. I need to know this kind of thing. And then they get a little bit disillusioned with it. Maybe they've tried some of it. It didn't work. I had one guy, tried to do something, busted out his knee pretty badly. As a police officer, and you're a defensive tactics instructor as well, how well does Luta Livre cross over into that realm of just, pure functional material for police officers, or maybe, people that are employed in like high-risk, professions?
And again, you were at the workshop segment of it. That's all Luta Libre, and so in my opinion, it works real well because you're catching a guy right off the bat. That being said, though, in the area of law enforcement, and so there are some things that you can do and some things you can't. As far as all the locks, the arm locks and some of the leg locks, there's some of those you can absolutely use, but the base of Luta Livre, we're not working off our back a lot. We're a real top dominant game where we're always looking to stay top side. So that aspect of it works really, really well. You know, when you create that habit, and I know that when you repeat, maybe pulling guard, and you start to do that stuff out on the street, just out of habit, that may compromise your personal safety. So that part of it doesn't work. And I know you've seen the video. There's a video out there, and I'm not here to bash a particular group of people, but they're working their nice defense by falling on their back, drawing their guns, and shooting, an advancing individual with a knife. And it's that fallacy of one shot and you're done. That's bullshit. It doesn't work, because in movement, you're never going to get that gun to do a face shot right off the bat. Because you and I know that even when shot through the heart, there's that rule of a dead man 10 seconds. A shot through the heart is not going to stop your body. Your core is a hydraulic pump. It's going to wait until it bleeds out. Even worse, you gutshot somebody. That's nothing. They're going to fight you. You gutshot somebody. It can be days before they die. So, in my opinion, Luta Livre works very well out on the street for law enforcement. There's part of it is called P36, and there's 36 moves that we use for police work. The other part of it is that I absolutely believe works real well for the other two arts. Obviously, is the Filipino martial arts work really well for police work, and then the Japanese jiu-jitsu, because you got real similar locks, you got the throws, and again, it works real well. I tend to stay away from the arts that become very sport by nature, because you tend to do things out of habit, and at times your awareness levels, your situational awareness tends to go down, and that's the stuff that needs to stay very, very high, because you don't want to compromise your safety or your life, And again, in the area of personal self-defense, you're always right until you're wrong, but by the time you're wrong, you're either seriously injured or you're dead, and there are no second chances on the street. There is no second place. You got to get it right, and you got to get it done.
Now, I find it real interesting that there's a whole separate curriculum just for street self-defense. Can you tell me about this T36 program?
T36, is developed by my instructor, Andy Anaconda, and again, it's geared for the and Andy kind of geared it for the the German military and the police and the Polizei there, and it's what they use for defense tactics, I guess, for lack of better words. Again, you're using some of the chokes, you're using some of the locks, and it's a lot of control, and with some elements of striking, but not as much striking as you may see in actual Luta Livre.
Now, Aurelio, before we wrap up here, can you tell the audience at home, if they want to reach out, if they want to get into Luta Livre, if they want to learn more about it, go to a seminar, or maybe even become an affiliate, how can they go about starting it?
They can go to my website, www.teamdsw, and that stands for DeLaRosa Submission Grappling.com. A lot of people say, I have to shoot that. No, teamdsw.com, or they can teamdsw at gmail.com or 815-970-4575. Again, I don't know how long I've known you now. Probably shit, man. I don't even remember.
Going on at least 10 years, I think.
Yeah. So, and they can always, get in touch with you if anybody wants me to come out. I'm big on the leg locks. I love doing legs. At the age of 49, at times, I don't move as fast. I'm not as strong as some of these other guys are up top. But, to catch a leg and get a submission, it's real easy, for me. So, but yeah, absolutely, man. If anybody wants to workshop, I'd be happy to come out and work with them. And if anybody wants to talk about becoming an affiliate, I'd be happy to do that as well, So.
Awesome. Well, for the audience listening at home, Aurelio did mention it. I've known him probably over 10 years now. And
yeah.
I can speak to the fact that what he teaches is definitely worth investigating, definitely worth the time if you're able to get out there. And you're out in the Rockford area, so anybody in Chicago, even the Midwest, it's worth the drive to definitely get out and see this gentleman. Aurelio, I want to thank you for making time in your schedule. I know we had rough time scheduling it because you're such a busy guy, but I appreciate you making time, and I know you got to run to get your class started. So again, I just want to thank you for being on today with us. It's been awesome.
I appreciate the invite. I look forward to doing it again. If you guys ever want to talk on this side of firearms, let me know, man. Again, I'm a master firearms instructor there, and I've taught all over the place doing that stuff as well. So
excellent, absolutely. We will have you back on hopefully real soon. Again, Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, you guys have a blessed night. We'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye.